In the second year after the founding of Konoha, I walked alone out of the village's main gate. Clad in black, my long hair cascading down my back like a waterfall, I carried both a scythe and a war fan across my shoulders. Bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, my solitary figure seemed touched by a quiet sorrow. I'm Uchiha Madara. 3 days ago, the Hokage election ended, and I was not chosen. Senju Hashirama won by an overwhelming majority. His victory is stark contrast to the future he once promised me. Worse yet, I now find myself increasingly unwelcome among the villagers. I have become the least liked person in the village. I once believed that founding Konoha would bring true peace and prosperity. But reality proved otherwise. The divide between the Senju and the Uchiha lingers still, like a shadow that can never be dispelled. The village's streets are filled with laughter and joy, yet all I feel is isolation and indifference, as if I become a stranger in my own home. It turns out that all this was just my illusion. What I call peace is nothing more than a fragile bubble. At this moment, I finally understood. The prejudice in people's hearts is like a mountain, impossible to cross. As long as such barriers exist, peace will remain. A mere fantasy. If things continue this way, the Uchiha clan will inevitably be pushed further to the margins, lost beneath the surface of this so-called peace. Having realized the problem, I called upon my clan to leave with me. Yet in our vast compound, not a single soul was willing to follow. At that moment, I felt more helpless than ever before. I had lost my brother, and now, the support of my clan, I had become someone neither needed nor acknowledged, utterly alone. A gentle breeze stirred, the dusk deepened, and my hair danced in the wind. In that unseen place, my spirits sank even lower, weighed down by darkness and despair. Just then, a young, earnest voice suddenly rang out behind me. Madara-sama. I stopped in my tracks, quickly gathering myself, shedding all trace of disappointment to restore my accustomed composure and dignity. Turning around, I saw a boy rushing to catch up. The boy had delicate features and fair skin, dressed in the high-collared attire unique to the Uchiha clan. His short black hair was neat and sharp, and beneath long lashes his eyes shone with a clear, bright light. He moved with remarkable agility. Though he had been far behind, in barely an instant he had almost reached me, a speed far beyond what one would expect from someone his age. It's you? I recognized him at once. Uchiha Kamiyu, a child who became a ninja at a young age. 4 years ago, he fought on the battlefield against the Senju clan, earning the name Phantom of Lightning for his exploits. Lord Madara, I never imagined you would remember me. The boy's gaze was sincere as he stood behind me, his voice steady and resolute. I am Uchiha Kamiyu, and I wish to follow you. What? My emotions wavered, tinged with surprise. Are you truly willing to leave Konoha with me? Shimba bowed respectfully, his voice resolute. Yes, I'm not like those foolish clansmen. I'm willing to follow you. Conflicted feelings churned within me as I quietly studied Shinba. After a long, silent pause, I let out a cold snort. So, you're here to pity me, is that it? I turned away, showing him only my back. Go back. Uchiha Madara needs no one's sympathy. Pity. Shinba tilted his head, puzzled. But he quickly realized that while my words told him to leave, my body made no move. He was probably mocking me in his mind for being all bark and no bite. Shinba spoke up at once. Lord Madara, I truly want to leave Konoha. There's no point in staying any longer. Why? I didn't look back, only asked in a calm tone. Hearing my question, Shinba clearly breathed a sigh of relief. When I told him to go, he must have felt a pang of anxiety, because it was obvious he had no wish to return. In truth, Shinba was a transmigrator, one who had been born into this world. He came into being 5 years before Konoha was founded, right at the tail end of the Warring States era, when the Senju and Uchiha clans were still locked in fierce conflict. Later, the two clans reconciled and established the Hidden Leaf Village. But with his knowledge of the future, Shinba was keenly aware of the fate that awaited the Uchiha clan. More than that, a flicker of anger flashed across Shinba's youthful face. The Senju clan killed my parents. They weren't shinobi, just tending to our wounded kin, yet the Senju still took their lives so cruelly, he said in a low voice. I will never forget this hatred. Never. I nodded. It seems you and I share the same pain. But that alone isn't enough for me to take you with me. If I recall, you have a younger brother, don't you? I do, but he's already been brainwashed by the Senju. Now, all he thinks about is sacrificing himself for this so-called will of fire. He's long since forgotten our grudge, even befriended our enemies. How laughable. Shinba's expression turned somber, his gaze steely with resolve. Uchiha Kagami, he betrayed me. He is no longer my brother. I gazed into the distance, silent, moved by his words. Shimba looked at my back and continued. Ever since you were passed over for Hokage, I understood. If even you could not become Hokage, who among the Uchiha ever could? This peace we have now is only the result of our compromise. But our pitiful clansmen still think Konoha will truly accept them. Like Kagami, they've been softened, like frogs in warm water, slowly losing their will to fight, waiting to be worn down to nothing. His every word struck a nerve. I remained silent, but my body trembled ever so slightly. Seeing that the time was right, Shinyu added, staying there, watching those foolish and numb clansmen. Sometimes I almost forget who I am. I've completely lost faith in this hopeless, ignorant clan. This time, his words truly reached me. I lifted my head to gaze at the sky and let out a long, weary sigh. The last rays of sunset brushed across my back, making my solitude feel even deeper. Shinyu's anger and disappointment resonated within me, as if we were both kindred spirits, equally fallen. Others might not understand what he said, but for me, in this moment, his words were impossible to ignore. I have no need for weak followers, I replied, my voice steady and full of confidence. Shinyu smiled, slowly closing his eyes. When he opened them again, where darkness once lingered, his gaze now burned a vivid, blood red. Around each pupil, 3 deep black tomo spun gently, their motion hypnotic. Oh, the aura of the 3 tomo Sharingan. I finally turned fully towards him, a hint of intrigue coloring my tone. No wonder you've been able to fight on the battlefield at such a young age. So your eyes have awakened to this level. Folding my arms across my chest, I continued. With strength like yours, you are indeed worthy to follow me. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of Shinyu's lips. The crimson light in his eyes seemed to swirl and deepen, and in an instant, the 3 tomo merged and blossomed into a dazzling, intricate kaleidoscope pattern. The markings spun with the precision of clockwork, yet glimmered with the mystique of a magic circle. So exquisite, they were like works of art. You've actually awakened. The Mangekyo Sharingan. The words escaped me in a low, awed tone, my features hardening with the gravity of the moment. Even for me, the sight of such eyes was enough to unsettle my composure. After all, this is the pinnacle of what the Uchiha clan can achieve. What have you been through? Throughout history, only a handful have evolved these eyes. I myself have seen only 2 pairs with my own eyes. Now, a third Mangekyo had appeared in this youth. Though his ocular power was not yet my equal, the depths and tranquility within his gaze revealed an extraordinary gift. Without a doubt, Shinyu's future brimmed with boundless possibilities. A fate much like mine, a resonance of souls, and these Mangekyo eyes. In a flash, I appeared before Shinyu, anticipation and excitement sparkling in my eyes. Perhaps you truly can inherit my will. Truthfully, I had already resolved to take him away the moment he confessed his despair for the Uchiha clan. I simply never expected such a remarkable surprise. A true Uchiha would never bow before a false peace. Only those who have awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan can see the world's true nature, for they have all experienced the deepest pain and despair. I struggled to suppress the excitement surging within me, my gaze locked intently onto Kamiba's eyes. At this moment, what intrigued me most was, what kind of power does your Mangekyo Sharingan possess? Outside the Hidden Leaf Village. So, Lord Madara, does this mean you agree to take me with you? Kamiba asked quietly. Yes. Madara nodded with firm resolve. Whether it was Kamiba's ordeal or the unique abilities of his Mangekyo Sharingan, both resonated deeply with me. He could become my comrade, or even my successor. I had made up my mind to bring him along on this journey. Thank you, Lord Madara. For the first time, Kamiba showed a genuine smile. The power within these eyes is my deepest secret. He raised a hand, fingertips gently brushing the corner of his eye, the light within them clear and radiant like polished jade. But since it's you, Lord Madara, I'm willing to reveal it. Under Madara's rapt and curious gaze, Kamiba began to speak, his words slow and deliberate. The technique in his left I was called Magitsura. Its ability was adaptation to all things, launching the most powerful counterattack against anything it had adapted to. In essence, he could infinitely analyze anything he touched or saw, a process known as adaptation. Once adaptation was complete, that type of influence would lose all effect on him. He would gain permanent immunity from harm and could launch an effective counterattack against the source. This power of adaptation was tightly bound to causality. It would not fail, no matter how time or space might change. If he suffered the same attack again during the adaptation process, his adaptation would only accelerate. This infinite analysis meant that even after adapting to a certain attack, the process would not cease. it would continually optimize his response. However, there was one thing he could never adapt to: the damage inflicted on his eyes when his ocular power was depleted. His right eye, on the other hand, possessed a technique called Heaven's Constancy. This granted him the ability to reverse time and space. He could freely rewind his own temporal and spatial state, restoring himself unconditionally to any previous moment within a 5-minute window. There is almost no limitation on the scale of time. After activation, it required just 1 second to cool down. Whether it was time or spatial state, he could flexibly choose what to restore. However, a moment that had already been used as a target for reversal could not be chosen for another rewind. The more Madara listened, the more fascinated he became. His eyes gleamed with excitement. Infinite adaptation and time-space reversal. Now these are truly divine techniques. If these two powers were used together, the results would be extraordinary. It had to be said, this head of the Uchiha clan had a remarkably discerning eye. Shinyu blinked. In truth, he was still concealing part of his right eye's power. The ability to reverse time and space wasn't limited to himself. As long as it was within his line of sight, anything in the world could become a target for reversal. However, the targets he could select were limited to the macro level of individual entities at best, and choosing to reverse such a target would consume a tremendous amount of chakra. The greater the target's impact on the world, and the further back he wished to turn time, the more of his ocular power would be spent. He had to stay vigilant, because if Madara ever discovered the full extent of his right eye's abilities, he would realize Shunyu was not only the strongest defender, but also the most powerful support. Who could say whether Madara would then see him merely as a tool to be used? In this world of ninjas, one must always keep some cards close to the chest. All right, let's go, Madara said, turning around. The joy of winning Shinyu over had clearly replaced his earlier worries. Yet Shinyu didn't follow. What's wrong? Madara tilted his head, slightly puzzled. Did you leave something behind? Well, you could say that. Shinyu gave a gentle smile. Lord Madara, actually, there is still another clansman who awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. What? Madara was taken aback, his voice tinged with confusion. Could it be your younger brother? Shinyu shook his head. He lacks that kind of talent. He hasn't even awakened the Sharingan yet. But really, none of that matters. Lord Madara, do you recall a secret weapon that the Uchiha clan sealed away during the middle of the Warring States era? A secret weapon of the Uchiha clan? Madara pondered for a moment, and then something seemed to stir in his memory. Memories, long buried, gradually rose to the surface. It was from many years ago, before Madara became the clan leader. Back then, a girl named Uchiha Hikari had appeared among the Uchiha. Like Shinyu, she had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan at a very young age. Her ocular technique was unique. It was known as the 8,000 Spears. The power of the 8,000 Spears was to mark her foes and absorb their chakra, enhancing herself. Once she left her mark on someone, she could manipulate them through a connection of mind and chakra. No matter the distance, she could draw chakra from them to herself or others. With such an ability, she quickly caught the attention of the clan's upper echelon. The leaders kept her as a secret weapon, imprisoning her in the darkness of the dungeons, only letting her out when battle called for it. But even that wasn't enough. In their quest for greater power, they went so far as to forcibly implant the techniques of Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi into her, transforming her completely into the clan's living weapon, stripping away her name, her freedom, and everything that made her human. And so, the Uchiha's most formidable weapon, Nameless, was born. With Nameless on their side, the Uchiha were able to turn the tide on the battlefield. Sensing the looming threat, the Senju clan joined forces with other ninja clans and began targeting her specifically. In the end, they paid a heavy price before finally managing to seal Nameless away. Are you thinking of rescuing her? Madara asked. That's right. She, too, was someone abandoned by her clan. If we could bring her to our side, under your leadership, we might be able to create a brand new Uchiha. Kamaba spoke with quiet persuasion. A brand new Uchiha. Madara was taken aback. A gentle warmth filled him, and a dark corner of his heart seemed to brighten, if only just a little. But he frowned slightly. That was so long ago. I don't even know where she was sealed. Just because you don't know doesn't mean the people in the Hidden Leaf Village are in the dark, Kamaba replied with a knowing smile. I suspect that somewhere in the Hokage's mansion, in a hidden chamber, there's a classified scroll detailing that very weapon. Though he didn't know the exact location of the seal, Kamaba recalled that all such intelligence was written on a secret scroll known as the Chronicle of Warring State Seals, and such scrolls were typically kept in the private vaults of the Leaf. I see, Madara murmured, thoughtful, falling into silence. He had just parted ways with Hashirama, leaving the village behind. To sneak back now, quietly and without a word. This was hardly like him at all. Sensing Madara's hesitation, Kamaba confidently thumped his chest. Lord Madara, I can slip into the village under cover of night and steal the secret scroll. Wouldn't that be too dangerous for you? Aren't you afraid the Senju ninja will catch you? Madara gazed toward the village, shaking his head gently. Kamaba smiled, his voice unwavering. Lord Madara, speed and stealth are my specialties. They'll never know I was there. Just as when I left the village to follow you, no one noticed a thing. No wonder you didn't leave with me right away. You had this all planned. Madara nodded, thoughtful. True to his decisive nature, he quickly agreed to Kamaba's plan. The two set their operation for that very night. No matter what happened, whether Kamaba retrieved the scroll or not, they would withdraw before the moon reached its zenith. Madara would wait outside the village, ready to meet him. As Kamaba prepared, his right eye glowed crimson, the pattern of the Mangekyo Sharingan swirling slowly, fine veins of blood threading across the whites of his eye. The sunset burned like blood. Crimson clouds drifted overhead. Fallen leaves hung motionless in the air. The wind fell silent, as if time itself had halted. From Kamaba's perspective, his body left a rippling distortion in space, a ribbon of shadow stretching all the way to the Hidden Leaf Village. His vision seemed to transcend into a fourth dimension. That trajectory, resembling a progress bar, recorded every movement he had made in the past 5 minutes, each moment preserved with perfect clarity. Now he could freely drag this timeline, choosing any point in time. With a simple play, he would instantly return to that exact position. This was the power of his ocular jutsu, Eternal Heaven's Stand. Pushing the timeline to its farthest edge, Kamehane rewound 5 minutes, finding himself once more hidden in a secluded patch of grass within the village. In the very next instant, he vanished before Madara's eyes, as if his existence had been erased like a pencil mark silently brushed away. Within the village of Konoha, seizing the moment when no one was around, Kamehane leapt out from the grass. He deactivated his Sharingan, his right eye cleared, and the streaks of blood faded away. In truth, what he rewound was his entire state within space and time. Not just the spatial coordinates, but also his bodily health and chakra reserves. Except for his consciousness and memories, every other aspect of his being reverted to what it had been 5 minutes prior. The power of time was both mysterious and formidable. So long as the target was himself, he could activate this ocular jutsu almost without consequence, with chakra expenditure so minimal as to be negligible. This was also why, even after awakening the Mangekyo, his eyesight remained unaffected. Kamehane glanced at the main gate. Quietly, taking advantage of the empty surroundings, he stepped lightly from the grass and walked out. He disturbed no one, feigning normalcy as he returned to the clan grounds, planning to wait until nightfall before taking further action. For now, he would rest. The streets bustled with people. Ordinary villagers mingled with shinobi. On the surface, members of every clan seemed to coexist in harmony, but whenever they noticed him, a member of the Uchiha, they instinctively avoided his gaze. Kamehane smirked inwardly. He knew all too well this was the handiwork of the Senju clan. Their aim was to isolate the Uchiha, to foster a sense of rejection, and thus compel them to submit. Only through total obedience to the village's dictates could they hope to gain so-called acceptance. Yet in truth, to Konoha's leadership, the Uchiha were never truly trusted. No matter how much the Uchiha cooperated, no matter how they endured brainwashing and manipulation, true acceptance would always elude them. The more Kamehane reflected on it, the more certain he became. Leaving Konoha with Madara had been the right decision. History itself bore witness. The fate of the Uchiha was nothing short of tragic. Ostracized, vilified, divided, exploited, and ultimately driven to extinction, even at the hands of their own kin. In the end, only Sasuke remained utterly alone. Across all generations of Hokage, not one had ever truly acknowledged the Uchiha. The first Hokage, Hashirama, was at least magnanimous, but his successor Tobirama, and those who inherited his philosophy, like Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura, regarded the Uchiha with suspicion. Someone like Kamehane, an Uchiha, might well have been quietly eliminated before Minato was ever born. One thing struck him as odd. Almost every member of the Senju clan in the village was an unfamiliar face. Those who had once fought in the war seemed to have vanished without a trace, hiding those who participated in the war from public view in order to win over the people's hearts. Kamaba pondered silently. The Senju clan truly excelled at political maneuvering. Faced with schemes and intrigue, a straightforward clan like the Uchiha was simply no match. Upon returning to the clan grounds, he ignored the whispered gossip of his clansmen and headed straight to his own room. He carefully inspected his gear, ninja tools, soldier pills, clothing, his battle armor, and a temporary tent. Everything was packed into a storage scroll and kept on him at all times. That's odd. Where's Kagami? Earlier that day, after Madara Uchiha's failed rally, Kamaba had sought out his younger brother, urging him to leave the village and follow Madara together. But all he received in return was a pair of eyes clouded with confusion and fear and a distant, uneasy tone. After all the effort we spent to secure this peace, brother, why would you want to destroy it with your own hands? Dear brother, I truly don't know if you're too naive or just too foolish. Kamaba lay back on the tatami, hands behind his head, closing his eyes and feigning sleep to conserve his strength for what was to come. Bringing up Uchiha Hikaru to Madara had, in truth, been a move with personal motives. It wasn't because of any feelings for the Bogwon pairing that existed in the original world, but because Uchiha Hikaru's abilities were simply too formidable. If Madara ever found himself in dire straits, Kamaba wouldn't need to play the tool. Having Hikaru by his side would be more than enough. With someone like Hikaru as an ally, even if something happened to Madara Uchiha in the future, his own safety would be much more assured. As the sun dipped below the horizon and night quickly draped itself over the land, Kamaba opened his eyes and glanced at Kagami, who lay sound asleep with his back turned. Kamaba shook his head slightly. He put on his mask, draped himself in a black cloak, and slipped out through the window, leaving the clan grounds without a sound. Relying on his agility and mastery of body flicker techniques, he easily evaded the patrolling shinobi, attracting no attention whatsoever. Within minutes, he arrived at his destination. At the entrance to the Hokage's mansion, 2 Senju clan guards stood watch. Ordinarily, entering the mansion at night without a summons would be considered a grave offense. But tonight was different. Kamaba didn't hesitate. He strode straight to the door. Hey kid, hold it right there. What are you doing out at night? One of the guards barked, his voice sharp and stern. Kamaba had no intention of exchanging words. His gaze lifted, and in an instant his Sharingan activated, 3 Tomo, slowly spinning. The moment the guards met his eyes, their expressions grew vacant as they sank into his Jinjutsu. Although Shinba's mastery of illusions couldn't quite match that of Itachi or Shursui, the formidable power of his Mangekyo Sharingan still allowed him to handle the 2 Jonin guards with ease. Without hesitation, he brushed past the guards and slipped swiftly into the building. Guided by his memory, Shinba moved toward the secret chamber, channeling a thin layer of chakra beneath his feet to muffle his steps and dampen all vibrations, concealing his presence to the utmost degree. The hem of his black cloak fluttered as he moved, and he drifted through the corridors like a phantom at midnight, arriving at the door of the secret chamber in no time. The ninja guarding the door barely managed to speak before losing consciousness under the crimson glow of the Sharingan. Demonique illusion, puppet technique. Shinba murmured, casting his Genjutsu, and then commanded, open the secret chamber. A complex sealing array was inscribed outside the chamber door. Forcing entry was no simple feat, although Shinba knew nothing of sealing techniques. By controlling the Senju clan's gatekeeper, the chamber was opened smoothly and without delay. Stepping lightly, Shinba entered the chamber and glanced around. Shelves lined the walls, filled with all manner of books and scrolls, making him frown involuntarily. So many scrolls. How long would it take to find the one I need? To prevent information leaks, most scrolls were sealed, their surfaces covered with intricate jutsu markings and almost no other clues. Without opening them, it was impossible to know what was inside. Shinba turned and quietly spoke to the Senju ninja at the door. Find me the Chronicles of Sengoku seals. The ninja nodded blankly, obeyed the order, and began searching through the scrolls inside the chamber. Jinjutsu really is convenient. Looks like I should practice more. Shinba amused himself, hands on his hips and a faint smile on his lips. Soon enough, the ninja handed him a crimson scroll. Shinba's eyes flashed as he asked tentatively, can you look for the Flying Thunder God technique? The Senju ninja replied in a monotone, there are no records of the Flying Thunder God technique in this chamber. In that case, what about the Book of Seals? I don't know what that is. Scratching the back of his head, Shinba wondered aloud. Could it be that the Book of Seals hasn't even started being compiled yet? The Book of Seals was a scroll containing various forbidden jutsu, organized by successive Hokage. Although it was said to be compiled by the Hokage, most of the forbidden techniques actually originated from Tobirama Senju, the inventor himself. It made sense. After all, Konoha had only just been founded 2 years ago, and Tobirama was busy with power struggles and plotting against Madara Uchiha. He hardly had time to compile a Book of Seals. Well, if that's the case, Shinba stroked his chin. Bring me all S-rank ninjutsu and forbidden techniques stored in this chamber. The Senju ninja nodded mechanically. After a thorough search, Shinba found himself holding 2 more scrolls in his hands. Only 2 scrolls? Well, that's enough. If I take too many, it'll be hard to explain things to Madara, anyway. A surge of excitement welled up in Shinyu's chest. Although the rank of a jutsu mainly reflects how difficult it is to learn, it's usually true that the harder a technique is to master, the more powerful it becomes. He didn't know exactly what forbidden jutsu were sealed within these 2 scrolls, but just obtaining them was enough to fill him with anticipation. With a gambler's thrill running through his veins, his excitement only grew stronger. Before long, Shinyu slipped out of the Hokage's building with his spoils in hand. On the way, he took down 3 patrolling ninja and finally drew close to the main gate of the Hidden Leaf Village. But just then, a sudden sense of peril made every hair on his body stand on end, as if a scythe was hanging right above his head. A suffocating aura of death enveloped him. Before he could even react, a cold kunai was pressed against his throat. In the moonlight, the kunai gleamed with a chilling light, as if it could pierce his jugular at any moment. Shinyu swallowed hard, a tingling numbness creeping up his neck and goosebumps prickling his skin. "Where do you think you're going, kid?" came a cold, steely voice from behind. Shinyu's pupils shrank sharply. That deep, commanding voice. Why is he here? Could he have been waiting for me at the gate all along? In that life-or-death instant, his mind raced. No, that can't be. My sensory skills didn't fail. I avoided every patrol, unless... Suddenly, he jerked his gaze down to his own sleeve. At some unknown point, an intricate flying thunder god seal had been quietly imprinted there. The moment Shinyu saw the mark, he understood. He'd been betrayed. Who are you? Answer me honestly. The kunai pressed back slightly, slicing his skin and drawing a thin line of blood. Shinyu's expression turned grim. A possibility surged in his mind, and a wave of fury ignited within him. Forcing a tone of nonchalance, he replied, "Just heading to the restroom." The voice behind him grew even colder. "Do you really think I'm joking with you? I was going to wait until you left the Hokage's building and let the night patrol catch you, but you moved quicker than I thought, dodging every guard. Honestly, can a guy even go to the bathroom without being watched? Is meddling in other people's business an Uchiha family trait or something?" Shinyu grumbled and suddenly slammed his body backward. But his opponent was just as fast. In a flash of cold steel, the moonlight caught the crimson of Shinyu's Sharingan. The Sharingan, with its extraordinary perception, not only saw the flow of chakra, but also tracked every movement with deadly clarity. In a split second, Shinyu locked onto the kunai's path, thrusting his elbow toward his assailant's abdomen as he twisted his body away at an angle. With a sharp, tearing sound, a fresh cut opened up across his left cheek. He barely managed to avoid a fatal strike, but his mask was ripped and fell to the ground. He seized the opportunity to leap backward, his chakra instinctively concentrating in his legs to enhance his muscle strength. In an instant, he widened the distance between them, so quickly that a blurred afterimage seemed to linger in his place. A clear figure appeared before his eyes. The man wore a gray-blue cloak, his silver-white hair drifting in the wind. With sharp phoenix-like eyes and striking features, 3 deep crimson markings adorned his face. He was none other than Tobirama Senju, the current Hokage's younger brother. Shinyu silently clenched his fists, forcing himself to regain his composure in an instant. At this moment, he had 2 choices. First, he could use the Heaven's Constant ability of his right Mangekyo Sharingan to shift through space, returning to any moment within the past 5 minutes. However, now that he had been exposed, if he were to vanish suddenly, Tobirama's keen senses would immediately detect his spatial technique. When that happened, the entire Hidden Leaf Village would be on high alert, making any further escape nearly impossible. What's more, the village might dispatch members of the Hyuga clan to search for him. The Hyuga possessed the Byakugan, able to scout from a distance, and Shinyu doubted he could evade their surveillance. Besides, there was still a formidable presence watching over the village. If that person were alerted and intervened, not even Madara Uchiha himself might be able to save him. Thus, for now, he could only stall for time against the enemy before him, looking for a chance to break out of the village. As long as he made it beyond the walls, Madara Uchiha would come to his aid in an instant. In the span of a single second, Shinyu swiftly analyzed the situation and settled on the best escape plan. An Uchiha? So you're nothing more than a common thief. Tobirama's gaze was cold as he sized Shinyu up. 3 Tomo Sharingan, an impressive body flicker techniques. Now I remember. You're that kid from the Uchiha clan known for your speed, aren't you? No wonder you move so fast. Tobirama-sama, is this the time to put on airs? Do you really take me for a fool? Shinyu sneered as he tore off his cloak. My plan was flawless. If it weren't for a certain traitor's betrayal, you'd never have appeared here. As soon as he finished speaking, flames flared up in his right hand, reducing his nightwear and the flying thunder god seal to ashes. Shinyu narrowed his eyes, a mocking smile curling on his lips. You showed up so late to escort me to the restroom. I suppose my dear little brother tipped you off, didn't he? It seems he really cares about me. You certainly have a sharp tongue. Tobarama glanced at the blood-stained kunai, his gaze sharpening. I'll admit, your skills are impressive. Sneaking into a secret chamber in the dead of night, stealing classified documents. Tell me, who's pulling your strings? Thanks to your training, Tobarama-sama. All these skills I learned on the battlefield years ago. Shinyu arched an eyebrow. Tobarama let out a cold snort. Not planning to talk? No matter. I have my own ways to make you speak. Where's my brother right now? You'd better worry about yourself first. Hand over the secret scroll and come back to the prison with me. Perhaps then I'll let you keep your life. Sorry, that's not happening. Kamaba shook his head lightly. I've already decided to leave Konoha. From now on, there will be no more ties between us. Arrogant fool. Do you think Konoha is a place you can come and go as you please? Even someone like Madara, and now imitators? Tobarama let out a mocking laugh. Lord Tobarama, are you planning to stop me? Humph. Dealing with you doesn't even require me to lift a finger. No sooner had he spoken than shadows flickered all around. In a matter of seconds, more than 20 Senju clan shinobi surrounded Kamaba in a tight circle. At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed nearby. Kamaba's expression shifted as he turned to look behind him. At the village gate, a crowd dressed in matching uniforms was gathering. Under the faint moonlight, their eyes glimmered with a cold, crimson light. The Uchiha, big brother. From within the Senju crowd, a small figure squeezed through. It was Uchiha Kagami. He called out to Kamaba, "Don't be so stubborn. You must have been influenced by Lord Madara, haven't you?" Me? Stubborn? Kamaba glared furiously at his brother, his eyes blazing as if with fire. You betrayed your clan, and even sided with outsiders against me. Have you forgotten how our parents died? Hatred only leads to more hatred. If we let it keep spreading, the hard-won peace will be destroyed. Kagami's eyes shimmered with tears. Lord Madara has already betrayed the village. You can't keep making the same mistake. Kamaba burst into furious laughter, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles cracked. So, who's the real betrayer now? I'm sorry, brother. I really want to stop you, but I know I'm no match for you, so... Kagami's voice trembled as tears welled in his eyes. But don't worry. I've already spoken to Lord Tobarama. As long as you cooperate, they'll let you out soon. Then we can live together in Konoha. Isn't that what you want? So I'm supposed to thank you for that? Kamaba was shaking with rage, the crimson light in his eyes growing ever deeper. Brother, enough. Kamaba drew a deep breath and sneered. Fortunately, I knew I couldn't count on you long ago. That's why I never told you everything. Tobarama watched Kamaba with a stony face, waving his hand impatiently. Take him. Just as the shinobi moved in, a powerful aura erupted from Kamaba, surging out in all directions. Ominous chakra surged forth like blazing fire, yet it carried a piercing, icy chill. Under Tobarama's astonished gaze, Kamehane slowly raised his head. His black hair fluttered as though caught in a phantom wind, and the tomo in his eyes began to spin and distort. Intricate, black patterns bloomed over the blood-red irises. This is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Tobarama felt a shiver run through him as those eyes fixed upon him. No, this child is beyond saving. He must be executed on the spot. Without hesitation, Tobarama formed hand seals. I cannot allow him to become another Madara. Water style, water severing wave. Tobarama acted decisively, unleashing a massive torrent of water that shot forward like a blade. With a dull, echoing crash, it sliced Kamahane's body clean in two. Blood stained the rushing water, blooming like a great crimson flower unfurling beneath the surface. Brother, Uchiha Kagami collapsed to the ground, crying out, "It shouldn't have ended like this." Bathed in the cold moonlight, Kamahane's body seemed to twist for an instant. Blood spiraled and flowed, limbs reknitting themselves. Defying all odds, he stood once more, completely unharmed. Impossible. Could it be Izanagi? Tobarama was thunderstruck, yet Kamahane's eyes remained unblemished, showing no signs of having used that forbidden technique. Before Tobarama could give an order, 3 ninjas rushed at Kamehane. His fighting style was vicious, utterly unlike that of any ordinary shinobi. He fought more like a wild beast unafraid of death, a stark contrast to his usually gentle demeanor. A long blade came crashing down from the front. Kamehane didn't dodge. Instead, he struck the blade with the side of his palm, driving it deep into his own right shoulder. Ignoring the blood spurting from the wound, he rammed his knee into the enemy's chin and in the instant the foe lost consciousness, Kamehane darted behind and snapped his neck with ruthless efficiency. A sharp whistle of steel cut through the air as another blade slashed down diagonally from behind. As if he had sensed it all along, Kamehane vanished and reappeared behind his attacker in a blink, his hand slicing down to shatter the foe's wrist and send the weapon clattering to the ground. The enemy's fingers went slack in shock. Kamehane snatched the long blade from his hand, spun, and drove it into the man's back. At that moment, a cold short blade burst through Kamahane's chest. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. The final enemy, a fellow Uchiha, had used the Sharingan's insight to spot the opening behind Kamehane. Why are you trying to kill me? Kamehane turned around with difficulty, fighting through the agony in his chest, desperate to see the attacker's face. The Uchiha ninja regarded him with a mocking smile. Oomph. The Uchiha now serve Konoha. Traitors like you, clinging to the past, have no place here. Kamehane reached out and seized the man by the shoulder. There was a cold, bestial glint in his eyes that made the other shinobi falter. To throw away your life for your enemies, your death is meaningless. Shinyu lifted his head, and his Mangekyo Sharingan suddenly flashed a vivid red. Jinjutsu, shackling stakes. Seizing the moment, he twisted his long blade and, under the terrified gaze of his opponent, drove it straight through the man's throat. Blood burst forth in a crimson spray. Shinyu withdrew his blade. The gear-like pattern in his right eye spun ever so slightly, and, in a bizarre turn of events, his body restored itself to its original state. The short dagger that had been embedded in his chest clattered to the ground, and even his clothes seemed untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. This utterly unnatural sight sent a chill through every ninja present. Impossible. Is this guy really impossible to kill? What kind of healing ability is that? Tobirama narrowed his eyes, raising the kunai that had just wounded Shinyu. To his shock, all traces of blood had vanished from Blade. This is more than just regeneration. He rapidly formed hand seals. Moisture in the air gathered at an astonishing rate, the humidity rising visibly. In an instant, a torrent of water surged forth from thin air. Water style, surging water wave. The water spun like a tornado, snaring Shinyu's arm before engulfing his entire body in its swirling current. Though it all happened in the blink of an eye, Tobirama's keen gaze caught it. In the instant Shinyu was swallowed by the torrent, the Mangekyo Sharingan in his left eye rotated gently, reminiscent of the ticking hand of clock. Then, with a commanding shout from the leading Senju ninja, a hail of kunai and shuriken rained down, splashing into the water. Steel tore through the vortex, stirring up crimson stains that swiftly spread through the churning waters, clearly visible to all. After 3 or 5 seconds, the water began to subside. Shinyu slowly rose from the ground. Bathed in the cold, pale moonlight, his eyes still glowed blood red, flickering with an eerie light. Everyone stared in disbelief. The young man was utterly unharmed. No trace of blood, no wounds, almost as if nothing had ever occurred. Wasting no time, Shinyu formed hand seals. No sooner had he gotten his feet than he launched his counterattack. Fire style, grand fireball technique. A burst of fire exploded as he expelled a massive fireball, waves of searing heat rippling through the air, scarlet flames illuminating the night sky. How can this boy possess such immense chakra? Someone exclaimed in awe. The fireball swept forward, a rolling wave of flame cracking the ground beneath it, as though nothing could stand in its way. Tobirama squinted, quickly shoving the dazed Uchiha Kagami behind him. With a sharp motion, he clapped his palms together. Water style, water formation wall. A waterfall-like stream materialized from thin air, forming a circular barrier of water that spun swiftly in front of the fireball, encasing Tobirama within its protective embrace. Water and fire collided with tremendous force, filling the air with clouds of hissing steam. Unfazed, Shinyu unfurled a scroll and drew a fresh long blade, raising both swords high. As he channeled fire-style chakra into the hilts, brilliant flames sprang to life along the blades, transforming them into twin blazing torches. Uchiha style, sword leap blaze. In an instant, his figure vanished from where he stood. Steam veiled everyone's vision. They could only make out a blurry shadow dashing toward the village gate, the very place where Uchiha ninjas had gathered. Then, one after another, muffled groans of pain echoed through the air. It's you who dragged me into this battle. A flash of steel, and blood sprayed forth. It's you who demand I risk my life for your sake. The deadly blaze of his blades flickered in and out, and at that moment, Kamehane seemed like a reaper emerging from the mist, his crimson eyes blazing with fierce intensity. And now, It's still you who seek to wipe me out completely. He moved with terrifying speed, unleashing consecutive body flicker techniques. With the overwhelming power of his Mangekyo Sharingan, none could stand against him. The screams and pleas for mercy quickly faded into the night. Damn it, this guy. How is this possible? Help, help! Is the Senju clan just going to stand by and watch? Kamehane, we're your kin. No. Kamahane's gaze remained icy and indifferent. He was like a heartless machine of slaughter. Gripping twin blades, he spun at blinding speed, his body the axis becoming a whirlwind of fire. With every flicker of movement, another ninja fell, and fresh blood sprayed through the air. By the time people regained their senses, the majority of the Uchiha clan had already collapsed on the ground. Wind style, great breakthrough. A gale howled. Finally, someone cast a wind jutsu to sweep away the lingering steam. At the same time, bubbles rose on the surface of the water barrier, hot vapor billowing as the blazing fireball was at last extinguished. Water-style water dragon bite. Tobirama rapidly formed hand signs, and the remaining water surged, expanding outward in an instant to engulf the ground beneath Kamahane's feet. Kamehane leapt up at once, but the water surface pulled at him with tremendous force. A massive vortex sucked him in. Like a flood rushing backward, water coalesced above into a colossal dragon, which then crashed down with thunderous force. A deafening crash shook the night. Roaring waves swept out in all directions, the ground caving in as nearby houses were smashed to pieces by the impact. Tobirama's eyes narrowed. Amid the chaos, he caught sight of Kamehane once more. This time, Kamahane's entire body was soaked, yet there were no visible wounds. Only his right arm hung at an unnatural angle. Yet, in the blink of an eye, his injuries vanished, his clothes dried as if untouched by water, and his gaze remained sharp and unwavering. Tobirama's expression grew grave. He sharply noticed that Kamahane's left eye shifted ever so slightly, barely perceptible, but he caught it. A strange unease flashed through his heart, leaving him momentarily stunned. What is going on? Am I imagining things? Why do I suddenly feel nervous about this boy? Lightning style, false darkness. Shinyu discarded the broken hilt of his blade, raising one hand high as dazzling lightning gathered in his palm. Thunder roared, rolling. Like a mighty torrent across the land, its deep rumble audible even a kilometer away, while flashes of lightning lit up the night sky. The damp air amplified the force of the lightning, crackling arcs exploding in the air, threatening to engulf everyone present. Several quick-witted jonin reacted instantly, forming hand seals without hesitation. Wind style, chaotic current dance. Wind style, great wind blade. Wind style, vacuum wave. The clash of wind and lightning jutsu filled the air. Only by combining their strength could the three wind style shinobi barely withstand Shinyu's lightning assault. He's from the Uchiha clan. How can his chakra reserves be this overwhelming? Tobirama frowned deeply, lost in thought. As an exceptional sensory ninja, he was acutely attuned to the strength and volume of chakra. This boy clearly didn't have an excessive amount of chakra, yet he could unleash two large-scale jutsu back-to-back and still remain composed, without showing the slightest fatigue. Fire style, Phoenix Fire Jutsu. With the initiative in his grasp, Shinyu launched his attack. Flames shot forth in a storm, like a rain of fire, engulfing everyone in a blazing sea. The Senju clan's shinobi scrambled to respond. Some summoned water-style jutsu. Others darted aside with swift movements, but under Shinyu's control. The flames seemed to chase their targets, making it nearly impossible to evade them all. Two were caught in the fire, their agonized screams piercing the chaos. Their encirclement shattered, and Shinyu seized the moment, retreating swiftly toward the village gates under cover of the swirling mist. Heaven's constant reversal granted him a unique, invincible interval. Whenever he was wounded, afflicted, exhausted, or in a dire situation, he could rewind his state to just before the harm occurred, restoring his health and chakra, always returning to peak condition. From the instant he activated his eye technique, a 5-minute countdown began ticking away. After a rewind, as long as he went unharmed for just 1 second, even a 5-minute cooldown would reset. As long as he met this condition, he could remain invincible indefinitely. Suddenly, the air behind Shinyu split with a sharp, cutting sound. As if he had sensed it beforehand, he tilted his head slightly. A kunai whistled past, grazing his right cheek. Shinyu's pupils contracted sharply. Thanks to his extraordinary visual prowess, he clearly saw the flying thunder god seal etched into the base of the kunai. In the next instant, Tobirama Senju's form blinked into existence at his side, without a hint of warning. In one fluid motion, Tobarama reversed his grip on the kunai and drove it straight for Shinyu's neck, swift, precise, and utterly merciless. Flying Thunder God Slash. But just then, the corners of Shinyu's lips curled upward. From a strange angle, his hand shot out, firmly grasping Tobarama's wrist. "I've been waiting for you, Lord Tobarama." Tobarama was stunned. Shinba's reaction speed was far beyond that of an ordinary person. He had managed to catch Tobarama's movement the instant it began. Tobarama's wrist was caught in an unbreakable grip, his kunai and arm trapped, as if sunk in a mire, unable to move forward even an inch. Reacting swiftly, Tobarama counterattacked. With a single-handed sign, a powerful surge of water flowed along Shinba's arm, instantly enveloping him and forming a massive sphere of water. Water style, water prison jutsu. But it didn't end there. Tobarama puffed his cheeks once more, unleashing another jutsu. Water style, heavenly tears. 3 water needles, fine as silken threads, shot through the air like raindrops falling from the sky, piercing the water sphere in a blink and sending ripples across its surface. The needles moved with blinding speed, almost imperceptible within the water prison, aimed straight for Shinba's eyes and the center of his brow. At that critical moment, Shinba raised his right hand, a dense cloak of chakra wrapping around his palm. With a sudden slash, an icy blue blade of light flashed forth. All 3 water needles shattered at once. The sphere of water split down the middle as though cleaved by an invisible sword, sending droplets spraying in every direction. The razor-sharp chakra blade surged forward unstoppably. Tobarama, eyes wide in disbelief, watched as the blade cut through his body, blood spraying, his form split clean in 2. But in truth, from the very first water attack, Shinba had already activated his left eye's Madara, beginning to adapt to Tobarama's water-style techniques. With each successive assault, the adaptation progressed, until at last, the perfected counterattack took shape, this dazzling blade of chakra. Not only could this chakra blade freely shift its density and strength, but it could also mimic the properties of flowing water, slipping past defenses with ease while boasting extraordinary cutting power. Its effect was reminiscent of the A-rank medical ninjutsu, the chakra scalpel, but with a crucial difference. Shinba's chakra blade could vary in length and sharpness at will, embodying the very essence of a water-splitting blade. No matter how turbulent the water, no matter how sharp the needles, all were effortlessly sliced apart by this blade of light, their threat completely nullified. It was important to note that his immunity applied only to Tobarama's water-style techniques. Yet the counter he gained through adaptation had now become a permanent part of his arsenal. This was the power of his left Mangekyo Sharingan, the eye technique known as Madara. Tobarama's body crashed to the ground, then with a faint pop, dissolved into a cloud of white smoke. A shadow clone? Shinba frowned slightly. Not far off, Tobarama watched the youth through the mist, a trace of lingering fear in his eyes. Thankfully, he'd used a shadow clone to test the waters. Otherwise, the consequences could have been dire. He actually broke free from the water prison from within, and my water-style jutsu is growing weaker each time. Could this be the power of his left eye? As Tobarama analyzed the situation, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. From his initial 3-tomo Sharingan to the instantaneous movement technique, and now to this uncanny Mangekyo jutsu, he grew increasingly uneasy as the battle raged on, his mind now firmly resolved. He absolutely could not let this boy leave alive. Though the fight had lasted only a few short minutes, the repeated unleashing of large-scale jutsu had already drawn more and more ninja to the scene. Shinyu lowered his body just enough to dodge an attack. His hands pressed together like blades, and a gleaming blue chakra edge sliced through the air, effortlessly cutting into his opponent's abdomen. Blood spurted in a gruesome spray, the scene turning brutally violent in an instant. Such overwhelming power left even Shinyu himself astonished. He couldn't help but glance down, studying the chakra blade in his hands. Tangible chakra surged from his palms, forming a stable and unyielding blade of light. Within, the chakra flowed rapidly, like a rushing stream, vaguely forming a closed circuit. "I've mastered quite the technique," he murmured, the corners of his mouth curling upward. "Since I discovered it here, I'll call you Autumn Dew on Leaf." But his gaze swept over the ever-growing crowd of ninja. Time is running out. I have to break through with everything I have. At the same time, Tobarama had completed his initial analysis of Shinyu's abilities. My water-style jutsu doesn't work on him, but that doesn't mean other jutsu are also ineffective. He likely can only be immune to one element at a time, in which case. Tobarama's expression was icy, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. "Everyone, keep your distance. Use ranged jutsu only. The ninja immediately spread out, and in the blink of an eye, countless hand signs flashed in Shinyu's eyes. Lightning style, Earth Walk. Earth style, Earth Dragon Bullet. Fire style, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Wind style, Vacuum Great Sphere. In an instant, wind, fire, lightning, and earth intertwined in a wild tempest. Jutsu rained down like a torrential storm, and Shinyu's eyes shone fiercely in the dazzling light. Only 1 minute left. I can't let them keep stalling me. His gaze remained cold and steady. If that's the case, then... The third power, Susu. A dense black aura erupted from within him, like black flames roaring in a hurricane. In the blink of an eye, a colossal jet black skeleton took shape around him, its presence heavy and suffocating, its surface gleaming with a sheen like polished obsidian. Two enormous skeletal hands stretched out from the swirling blackness. With a single sweeping motion, they repelled the majority of the incoming jutsu. A thunderous roar shook the air, sending out a shockwave that shattered and dispersed every attack in an instant. The crowd stared, wide-eyed and speechless, utterly stunned by what unfolded before them. Some stood frozen in place, able to do nothing but feel their hearts pounding wildly in their chests. The massive black skeleton enveloped Shinyu completely, like an undead spirit clawing its way out of the abyss. Though it manifested only as an upper torso, it exuded an unstoppable pressure, as if a single swing could obliterate anyone who stood in its path. Those who block my way die. Shinyu spoke coldly, blood slowly streaming down his handsome face. Dark energy churned around him, billowing like banners on a battlefield. In this moment, he became an unstoppable war god, cloaked in black armor, standing tall and unyielding. At the entrance of the Hidden Leaf Village, Shinyu was shrouded in a swirling black mist, his two Mangekyo Sharingan eyes flashing with an eerie crimson light. With a single thought, Susanoo extended a giant hand, seizing the remaining ninjas who had yet to retreat. The massive skeletal hand closed with mechanical force. With just a gentle squeeze, a bloody mist burst between its fingers, leaving only shattered bones and severed limbs tumbling from the sky. Damn it! Kill him! That Uchiha brat die! Enraged cries erupted as the mob launched another attack. The second wave of ninjutsu came roaring in, laced with countless explosive tags and whistling kunai. A series of deafening blasts shook the air. Unfazed by the onslaught, Shinyu calmly retreated step by step, Susanoo moving with him. The colossal skeletal armor, as if forged from some mysterious metal, withstood the barrage of explosions without so much as a scratch. When the smoke cleared, the black skeleton stood unscathed, the dark aura undiminished, and Shinyu remained securely sheltered within. In contrast, the Leaf Ninja's attacks seemed powerless, like a light rain pattering against solid stone, utterly incapable of causing harm. Guiding Susanoo, Shinyu threw a punch. With a thunderous crash, the gates of the Hidden Leaf Village collapsed instantly, fragments of wood and stone flying in all directions. Try this on for size, he called from within Susanoo, weaving hand signs at lightning speed. Fire style, Great Fireball, Dual Orbs. The black skeleton spread its bony hands, searing air swirling upward as two enormous fireballs formed in its palms, their heat sweeping over the battlefield. Susanoo hurled the fireballs forward, scorching flames sweeping everything before them. Amid the surging waves of heat, pained screams echoed. No one could withstand such an onslaught. Tobarama Senju attempted to counter the flames with his great waterfall jutsu, but his water technique evaporated before even reaching Susanoo, reduced to a shower of droplets, as if striking an insurmountable barrier. Is he completely immune to my water style? He spat in frustration. What a troublesome power! Empowered by Susanoo, Shinyu tore through the Leaf Village's defenses, but the village's ninja pursued him relentlessly. He clenched his jaw, crimson veins spreading in his eyes, his gaze steely with resolve. The gigantic skeletal form twisted like an enraged giant ape and hurled the fireballs behind him. A powerful whoosh echoed as both fireballs streaked through the air, trailing blazing arcs as they shot straight into the heart of the Leaf Village. Bolstered by Susanoo's immense power, nothing could withstand the impact of the fireballs. The ground itself was gouged with two deep, smoldering trenches. You cunning little brat! Tobarama growled in anger, pressing his hands together in preparation to unleash an earth-style jutsu. Just then, a powerful and commanding shout echoed from within the village. Summoning technique, Quintuple Rashomon. With a thunderous sequence, 5 colossal gates rose from the ground, each adorned in a different hue. The doors were carved with lifelike visages of demons and gods, symbols of death and the underworld, sending clouds of dust billowing skyward. The first fireball crashed fiercely into the first gate, flames and shockwaves bursting in all directions. The second fireball followed hot on its heels. A deafening rumble shook the air as the Rashomon gates were smashed one after another. Only when the fourth gate was destroyed did the relentless fireballs finally expend their force, fading away slowly in midair. Amid the swirling smoke and dust, a figure clad in white descended gracefully from above, landing with a forceful impact at the village entrance and leaving a deep crater in the earth. His commanding presence inspired awe and reverence. Lord Hokage, Lord Hashirama, clan leader, you've finally returned. The crowd erupted with joyous cheers, and at the sight of this figure, everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief. Even Tobirama felt a weight lift from his heart. Big brother, you're finally here. Hashirama gave a subtle nod, his sharp gaze fixed on Kamaba within the Susanoo. It's time for this farce to end. Kamaba let out a soft chuckle. Don't anyone know who I am, Lord Hashirama? I only know one thing. You're a destroyer, Hashirama replied coldly. Anyone who dares threaten this village will never escape my justice. The first one to strike wasn't me, but never mind. Kamaba's words were cut short, as Hashirama had already begun weaving hand signs. What style? What dragon jutsu? The earth split open, and a gigantic wooden dragon burst forth, its size rivaling the first form of Kamaba's Susanoo. The ground trembled violently as the wood dragon lunged, jaws wide, toward Kamaba. Yet Kamaba only smiled faintly and, to everyone's surprise, willingly dispelled his Susanoo. The skeletal half-form dissolved into black mist, and with his eyes closed, Kamaba seemed to accept the fate of death. At that very moment, a much thicker blue arm shot out from the side, seizing the wood dragon's neck in an unbreakable grip. No matter how fiercely the dragon struggled, it could not advance another inch. The wind howled as another massive hand gently plucked Kamaba from harm's way, pulling him behind a lone figure. Hashirama's gaze locked onto this newcomer, and he slowly lowered his hands, ceasing his jutsu. The wood dragon collapsed, shaking the ground. As it fell, the blue skeletal structure faded away, revealing a man standing with arms crossed, black hair whipping wildly in the storm. Uchiha Madara. Seeing that Madara had arrived in time, Shinyu finally let out a quiet sigh of relief. He took the opportunity to activate the pupil technique in his right eye, silently restoring his body to its peak condition. At this moment, only 15 seconds remained before the temporal limit. If he exceeded that, he would only be able to rewind to his injured state. However, he was well prepared for this. The reversal targeted only his physical state, excluding his clothes and chakra, so on the surface he still appeared utterly battered, as if he had just survived a fierce battle. In reality, his stamina was abundant, and he was completely unharmed. After all, with Madara present, he had to conceal his true condition. While Madara and Hashirama gradually squared off, Shinyu swiftly deactivated his Sharingan, and his eyes returned to their deep obsidian black. The activation of Susanoo moment ago had consumed an enormous amount of ocular power, leaving every cell in his body faintly aching. No wonder the original Sasuke lost his sight so quickly after using it. Fortunately, Heaven's constant stand had prevented the worst consequences, but it also meant he couldn't afford to prolong the fight. He had to settle things within 5 minutes, or he would have no way to retreat unscathed. Madara, what exactly are you trying to do? Hashirama asked sternly. Clearly, he had already linked Shun Yu's actions with Madara. I'm here to take my disciple, Madara replied, flicking his sleeve as he stepped protectively in front of Shun Yu. What? He's your disciple? Hashirama frowned and turned to Shun Yu, displeasure evident in his voice. Do you realize he just killed many of our comrades? That's your comrades. If they're dead, they're dead, Madara replied coldly, his expression unyielding. Hashirama took a step forward, his face a mixture of conflict and pain. Madara, what is it that you want? I already promised you, the second Hokage's seat. He trailed off, unwilling to reveal too much in front of the others, especially with his brother standing behind him. Come back, he finally said quietly, after a long silence. Madara remained aloof and proud. Didn't I tell you already? I've begun to doubt your ideals. Leaving Konoha was my way of testing whether your path was right. Do I really need to repeat myself? Madara, you're just the same as ever. No matter how much I try, nothing gets through to you. Hashirama sighed helplessly. At the very least, leave the boy behind. Madara lifted his chin. Impossible. Shun Yu is of my clan, my only acknowledged successor, and also my dearest friend. You'd best abandon those unrealistic dreams. He killed so many people. Hashirama's eyes became sharp. Your clan is already in Konoha. Why defend a murderer? Ha, a murderer? You actually use that word to accuse others. How ridiculous. Madara threw his head back and laughed, his voice echoing. Am I not a murderer? And you? And Tobirama behind you? Are you not the same? The people in the village, they're no longer worthy of being called Uchiha. With clansmen like these, I could never recognize them as my own. Madara swept his cold gaze over the Uchiha behind Hashirama, their ranks decimated and wounded, his tone dripping with contempt. Madara, stop being so stubborn. You know I won't spare that child. You've already taken my dearest friend from me, and now you want to take another. Madara's expression twisted in pain and rage. Hashirama froze, the killing intent in his heart faltering. What did you say? Today, I'm taking him with me. Anyone who dares stop me, let them try. With those words, Madara turned on his heel and left, taking Kamiyo with him. Hashirama stood rooted to the spot, Madara's words echoing endlessly in his mind. The others looked at one another in confusion and hesitation, with the Hokage making no move. Who among them would dare act rashly? Tobirama hurried to Hashirama's side, his face filled with worry. Brother. Hashirama didn't respond. Instead, he raised his voice and called out, Madara, is it because of Izuna that you still can't let go? Madara paused, a bitter smile flickering across his face. Hashirama, the friend I spoke of was you all along. The night wind carried away the scent of battle, but Hashirama's heart remained in turmoil. Brother, Uchiha Kagami lay weakly on the ground, his face smeared with tears and dirt. He gazed after his brother's retreating figure, pain and helplessness written across his young face. Tobirama caught sight of him and was startled to see Kagami's eyes had turned blood red, with two tomo spinning clearly in his pupils. At that moment, the moon hung full and bright in the night sky. Deep within a dense forest, Kamiyo and Madara sped swiftly northwest, toward the land of fire's borders. Their objective was clear. They had evidently learned the location where Uchiha Hikaru was sealed. In Madara's hand was a crimson scroll, the very same Chronicle of Warring State seals that Kamiyo had gone to great lengths to obtain. Looks like aside from Nameless, the Senju and Uzumaki really did seal away quite a lot, Madara said, scanning the scroll as they went. Kamiyo chimed in, the breeze sweeping his black hair back. What do you think, Lord Madara? I find a box of ultimate bliss fascinating. Legend says it was a tool of the Sage of Six Paths himself. But all these external things have their limits. True strength lies only in oneself. Madara tucked the scroll away with a chilling smile. Forget ninja tools. Even the power of the Sage of Six Paths is not beyond our reach. The power of the Sage of Six Paths, Kamiyo echoed softly, lost in thought. He certainly understood what Madara was implying. The fusion of the Senju and Uchiha powers was, in truth, the power of their distant ancestors, the Otsutsuki clan. In the basement of the Naka Shrine, there's an ancient stone tablet, a relic passed down through generations of the Uchiha clan. Inscribed upon it are the secrets to obtaining the power of the Sage of Six Paths. The words, however, are encrypted by special techniques. Only those whose Sharingan has reached higher levels can decipher more of its contents. Madara cast him a sidelong glance. You're aware of this, aren't you? Shinyu nodded. After awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, I had the chance to view that stone tablet myself. Then you should already know the method to unlock the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Let me remind you, though your ocular powers are indeed unique, they have not yet reached the true heights of the eternal eyes. Prolonged use will still bring blindness and other side effects, Madara said, his words layered with meaning. Understand, Lord Madara, Shinyu replied softly. When the time is right, I will take the necessary steps. No need for me to go on about it, I suppose, Madara chuckled, then asked in a more casual tone, how long has it been since your Mangekyo Sharingan awakened? Let me see. It's been a little over 3 years now, Shinyu answered, a distant look in his eyes as memory surfaced. He had awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan at the age of 4, after witnessing the death of a childhood friend right before his eyes. War was raging then, and soon after, his clansmen drafted him into their ranks. They handed him a sword, dressed him in armor, and forced him onto the battlefield. What could a 4-year-old child possibly do in battle? The Sharingan made him a bit more agile than others his age, but in such a brutal environment, simply surviving was already an accomplishment. He could still recall his first time on the battlefield with vivid clarity. That was his second time facing death head-on, but unlike the first, when his friend had succumbed to illness, on the battlefield, death arrived wielding blades. Corpses and blood blanketed the ground, the air thick with the stench of iron and gore, while shouts and screams twisted together in a heart-stopping symphony. A clansman fighting alongside him had even given him a thumbs up, marveling that one so young could remain so calm amid such carnage. Only Shinyu himself knew that he was actually paralyzed with terror. But that clansman would never learn the truth. The next day, he too fell on the battlefield, his body left cold and lifeless. If you want to survive, you had to grow stronger. War was a merciless grinder of flesh, and amidst the endless tide of killing and death, Shinyu's Sharingan rapidly evolved into its three-tomo form. His parents were kind-hearted people. Though they lacked the talent to become shinobi themselves, they had learned a bit of medical arts. For the sake of their son's safety, they opened a small clinic, treating wounded clansmen without hesitation. Gradually, their home became a temporary haven for injured Uchiha warriors seeking recovery. This approach made Kamiyu extremely vigilant. He had repeatedly warned his parents that such actions could easily drag them into the turmoil of war. Yet on one hand, his parents were unwaveringly persistent. On the other, the reputation of their healing sanctuary had already spread far and wide. Faced with the constant stream of wounded seeking help, they found themselves unable to refuse anyone. A year later, while Kamiyu was locked in fierce battle on the front lines, an intense sense of foreboding suddenly gripped his heart, as if he could sense some great calamity about to befall. He immediately poured all his strength into ending the fight as quickly as possible, but when he rushed home, all that awaited him were his parents, already breathless and lifeless, and his younger brother lying in a pool of blood. In that moment, every dark emotion within him surged to its peak. Boundless rage and regret flooded his soul. He threw his head back and let out a long, agonized cry, his grief so overwhelming it felt as if his chest might burst. His eyes became bloodshot, his entire being radiating a chilling, bone-deep coldness. And in that very instant, he awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Sharingan is often called the mirror of the soul. When a Mangekyo Sharingan awakens, it gives birth to unique ocular powers shaped by the user's deepest desires and will. From hatred and regret, Kamiyu unlocked two abilities, Magat Sumara and Aim no Tokatachi. Consumed by desperation, Kamiyu unleashed his ocular powers, attempting to turn back time. Though his parents had already passed for some time, his younger brother, Uchiha Kagami, was still within the critical 5-minute window between life and death. Under the power of temporal reversal, his brother miraculously revived, all his wounds completely healed. His thoughts returned to the present. Kamiyu shook his head, striving to clear away the chaotic flood of memories. Soon, the two of them came to a stop beside a low boulder. There, two ninja stood sentry, and on the stone wall behind them was engraved the crest of the Senju clan. It seems this is the place. Without hesitation, Madara strode forward, making no effort to conceal himself. Kamiyu had no choice but to follow closely behind. Halt! This is a restricted sealing ground. Outsiders must leave immediately. The two guard ninja barked sharply. Kamiyu narrowed his eyes, detecting the murderous glint in their gaze and the aura of those who had survived bloody battles. Senju and Sarutobi. He noted the family crests on their uniforms, smirking coldly. So they stationed the very ninja who fought against us here. He's Uchiha Madara. The two Konoha ninja instantly recognized Madara and tensed as if facing their greatest enemy. Lord Madara, these two are responsible for the deaths of many of our clansmen back then, Kamiyu said in a low, grim voice. We cannot let them go. Is that so? Then I'll leave them to you, Madara replied indifferently, making it clear he had no intention of intervening himself. Instead, he casually sat down atop a massive stone nearby. Without another word, Kamiyu pushed off on the ground, his figure streaking forward like an arrow loose from the bow. You little brat, how dare you look down on us? The leading Senju ninja drew his long blade in fury, his voice sharp with anger. In that instant, Shinyu activated his Sharingan. The three tomo spun within his eyes, swirling like deep, hypnotic whirlpools that drew the enemy's gaze. The ninja had barely met his eyes before he was utterly enthralled, unable to break free from the illusion. Autumn dew on the leaf. Chakra surged swiftly to Shinyu's right hand, condensing into an icy blue blade of light that carved a dazzling arc through the air. Don't look into his eyes. At the critical moment, a Sarutobi clan companion yanked the entranced ninja backward with all his strength. The blade of light slashed past, slicing open his clothes and leaving a straight, bloody gash across his skin. Missing his mark, Shinyu immediately lunged at another foe, thrusting the blade, thin as a cicada's wing, straight for the man's face. This Sarutobi ninja was clearly seasoned. Facing an Uchiha Sharingan, he skillfully avoided Shinyu's gaze. Even without meeting his eyes, he was nimble enough to handle the attack. Yet the Sharingan's strength was not limited to illusions. Its prowess in close combat was formidable as well. After only 2 exchanges, Shinyu had already read the Sarutobi ninja's movements with pinpoint accuracy. With a single slash of his chakra blade, the enemy's kunai was cleaved in 2. Shinyu spun with the momentum, leaping up and landing a fierce kick into the Sarutobi ninja's midsection. There was a heavy thud as the Sarutobi ninja was sent flying, but he used the force to his advantage, quickly widening the distance between them as he tumbled back, weaving hand signs in the process. Fire style, grand blaze technique. A wave of searing flames surged forth, bathing the entire field of vision in crimson. Shinyu barely had time to raise his chakra blade before the fire engulfed him. We got him! A flicker of excitement flashed in the Sarutobi ninja's eyes. He was just about to release his companion from the Jinjutsu when, all of a sudden, a figure burst from the heart of the flames. So fast it seemed almost unreal. No, he's coming to take me with him. Panic struck the Sarutobi ninja. He tried to evade, but it was far too late. Shinyu strode through the fire, his black clothes and hair wreathed in flames and smoke, his face scorched and raw, exposing crimson flesh. Yet his eyes gleamed with a fierce light, his pupils now swirling with the intricate patterns of the Mangekyo Sharingan. He seemed entirely unfazed by his injuries. In a flash, he used the body flicker technique, combining it with the blue-glowing autumn dew on the leaf, tearing through the air itself as he slashed cleanly through the Sarutobi ninja at the waist. A cry of utter despair rang out. The last thing the ninja saw was Shinyu's unscathed silhouette, standing tall. How is this possible? He muttered bitterly as he collapsed. Shinyu strode to the side of the Senjun ninja, swung his blade, and with one clean motion, severed the man's head, sending a spray of blood through the wind. From the moment he had fallen into the Jinjutsu, his defeat had already been sealed. The battle ended in a heartbeat. With practiced efficiency, Shinyu gathered the corpses of the leaf shinobi into a pile and incinerated them with a single fireball, reducing them all to ashes. A ninja's battle is just as much a contest of intelligence and information. Cremating a body to erase all traces is the best way to conceal one's own secrets. Even from a corpse, however, a ninja can extract valuable intel. At that moment, Madara walked over. I watched your fights, yesterday and today. All I can say is, you rely far too much on your ocular powers. He gave his assessment, a hint of dissatisfaction showing on his face. Please teach me, Shimba responded, suddenly stiffening with nervousness. Your ninjutsu and taijutsu are both far too rough. There's no elegance in your fighting style, and you depend too heavily on exploiting gaps in intelligence to secure victory. Fighting like this, you'll never become truly strong. Madara shook his head. With the way you fight now, if you don't win in the first encounter, the next time you face that opponent, you'll suffer for it. Shimba felt a bit embarrassed. Madara's critique hit the mark. His foundations were indeed weak. He'd been thrust onto the battlefield with little formal training. His ferocious, direct way of fighting was forged entirely through real combat. After awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, he'd taken this desperate, all-in style to the extreme. All in all, while the Mangekyo Sharingan had granted him formidable power and rapid growth, it also led him astray. He became obsessed with defeating opponents efficiently, neglecting the importance of fundamental training. In truth, true mastery is built patiently, through attention to detail and unwavering persistence. Take Might Guy from the original timeline, for instance. One kick of his nearly changed the course of everything. Was his strength solely due to the 8 gates technique? Of course not. The 8 gates only elevated the abilities he'd honed over years of relentless practice to their highest potential. What truly made him strong was his own unyielding self. Without decades of arduous training, without meticulously refining his body, even opening the 8th gate wouldn't have given him the power to surpass the 5 Kage, nor the strength to unleash a kick capable of threatening a godlike foe. Strength is built step by step, through consistent effort. Only by accumulating bit by bit can one ultimately become powerful. Taijutsu isn't something you win with recklessness or courage alone. The key is in mastering the details. And ninjutsu isn't just about unleashing chakra mindlessly. Madara continued, then sighed and shook his head. But never mind, you're still young. It's not too late to change. Allow me to guide you. Shimbo listened, eyes wide with excitement, as if starlight danced within them. Judging by your fighting style, you're bold yet careful, and you can wield chakra blades, which suggests you have a real talent for precise chakra control. You could very well be a promising seedling. Madara lifted his chin. So, do you wish to undergo my training? I do. Shinyu nodded without the slightest hesitation, So quickly, it was as if a chick were pecking at grains. After clearing the battlefield, Shinyu looked toward the stone wall ahead, where intricate and inscrutable ceiling patterns were carved. Sensing the situation, he wisely stepped aside to make room for Madara. Madara placed his fingers on the stone surface, murmuring under his breath, "A space-time seal, so that's how it is." Shinyu felt a surge of excitement. He hadn't expected Madara's mastery of sealing techniques to be so profound. Just as he was anticipating how Madara would unravel the seal, a sea-blue light suddenly flashed before his eyes. With a thunderous boom, Madara activated the initial form of Susanoo. As the massive blue fist swept out, the stone wall crumbled in an instant, a thick cloud of dust billowing skyward, the ceiling patterns dissolving along with it. Shinyu stood frozen, his gaze blank with shock. "What are you staring at?" Madara cast him a sidelong glance, arms folded across his chest. As long as you destroy the vessel of a seal, even the strongest sealing technique becomes useless. Chunks of stone tumbled down, and as the dust gradually settled, a dark entrance was revealed before them. Fire style, blazing flame. With a snap of his fingers, Shinyu caused the air above his fingertip to shimmer and twist, and a ball of fire sprang into existence, quickly expanding to the size of a palm. The firelight illuminated the interior of the cave, revealing every detail. "Oh, you become quite adept at fire style already." Madara watched Shunyu's technique with a hint of surprise. Normally, a ninja would need to form hand seals to direct the flow of chakra and perform ninjutsu. The ancestor of the Uchiha clan, Indra, once devised 12 basic hand signs that had a profound influence and are still used throughout the ninja world. However, for ninjas highly skilled in a particular ninjutsu or elemental transformation, their bodies become so accustomed to the chakra flow that the hand seal process can be greatly simplified. The truly gifted can even perform jutsu without any hand seals at all. Holding the fireball aloft, Shinyu led the way. The depths of the cave opened into a broad clearing, where black runes, reminiscent of a magic circle, were gradually fading from the ground. Underground, Madara's voice came from behind. "Right," Shinyu replied, and seeing that Madara had no intention of acting, he took the initiative to form hand seals himself, pressing one palm to the earth. Earth style, flowing mud wave. A peculiar energy pulse spread outward from his hand, causing the ground to ripple and churn, earth and stones streaming like water. Shinyu's chakra possessed 6 attributes: wind, fire, water, earth, lightning, and N. Although he hadn't mastered many jutsu, each was chosen for practicality. Fire style and lightning style favored offense. Earth style leaned toward defense and support. Every technique he learned was for battle and survival. Soon, a modest-sized pit appeared in the ground. Curled inside, hugging her knees, was a black-haired girl. She was thin and frail, dressed in tattered black clothes. Her long hair, like a silk curtain, trailed along the ground, making her look especially lonely. Sensing the movement in the air and the warmth of the firelight, the girl trembled a little as she slowly lifted her head. "Uchiha Nameless, from today on, you are free." A pale, elegant hand reached out to her, stopping just in front of her. She looked up, and in her dark, shining eyes appeared the reflection of a gentle and handsome face. "Who are you? Why are you letting me go?" She tilted her head in confusion, her voice soft and clear, reminiscent of wind chimes swaying gently in a breeze. "Just like you, I, too, am someone who was abandoned. As for why I'm letting you go, you could say it's so we can keep each other warm, so we can rely on one another." Shinyu smiled, his eyes seeming even softer in the glow of the fire, and the faint smile on his lips seemed to bring with it the warmth of sunlight. "In any case, you no longer have to stay trapped in this place of darkness." "Is there really no condition?" she asked hesitantly. "But why? Why would you rescue someone like me for no reason at all? What's this? Have you already accepted your fate?" Shinyu gazed into her eyes, recalling Boruto's words from another time and space. His voice was firm. "Don't let others decide your destiny for you. You should choose for yourself, create your own path. That is the future that truly belongs to you." A ripple of emotion stirred in her eyes, like a pebble tossed into a still pond, sending gentle waves across its surface. She stared blankly at the boy before her. Trapped in this endless darkness, she had long since lost any sense of time. The unending emptiness had nearly eroded all her feelings, leaving nothing but hatred and a heart as cold and guarded as ice. But now, that layer of ice was quietly beginning to melt. For reasons she could not explain, Nameless, or rather Uchiha Hikari, reached out and took Shinyu's hand, allowing him to pull her up. Shinyu couldn't help but size up her height, surprised to find she was actually half a head taller than he was. She looked to be about 12, and it seemed she had remained that age ever since she had been sealed away. Her features were delicate and clear, her eyes dark as autumn water, her face small and soft in the shape of a goose egg. Though she was a bit dirty from her imprisonment, her beauty was still unmistakable. She wore the worn black robes of her clan. Her thin, bare feet were exposed, with only rough bandages wrapped around her ankles. She had no shoes. When she finally stepped out of the cave, the blinding sunlight fell upon her pale face, making her squint instinctively, uncomfortable with its intensity. She raised her hand to shade her forehead, slowly adjusting to the brightness outside, as if she had not walked beneath the sun for a very long time. So, this is Nameless? Madara was watching her from the side as well. After a while, her eyes gradually adapted to the sunlight, and her vision slowly cleared until she could make out the Uchiha clan fan crest on Shinba's back. Uchiha, that emblem stirred her sleeping memories. Fragments of the past flickered before her eyes, scenes of brutal combat on the battlefield. The cold, unfeeling orders of her clansmen, the wailing of enemies, all seemed to echo in her ears once again. "You're with the Uchiha?" It was as if a switch had been flipped inside her. Her eyes flew wide open, and in an instant, her pupils turned a vivid crimson, Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu, bloodshot veins crawled across her right eye as a jet-black flame erupted without warning. A mass of pitch-black fire suddenly blazed up behind Shinba, spreading over his entire body in an instant. "What the hell?" Shinba shrieked, violently shaking Nameless' hand off. Instinct kicked in. He triggered his body flicker technique, leaping more than 10 meters away in the blink of an eye, moving like a monkey whose tail had just been scorched by fire. Nameless' pupils shifted ever so slightly, and in the next instant, with a sudden, explosive sound, Madara Uchiha too was engulfed in those black flames. Blood trickled from the corner of Nameless' eye, sliding down her cheek. Her once gentle face now twisted into something fierce and merciless. "I'm going to burn to death." Shinba screamed in agony. This black fire was known as Amaterasu. Legend had it that it could consume anything in existence, never extinguishing until its target was utterly annihilated. Its heat was unimaginable. Shinba's clothing seemed to melt away in an instant, dissolving like sugar in water. In less than a second, the skin on his back began to blacken and char, and the searing pain nearly robbed him of all reason. He couldn't fathom how the ever-gentle, Nameless Uchiha would suddenly turn on him in such a brutal betrayal. But in that split second, there was no time for questions. Years of battle-hardened instinct kicked in. As soon as injury struck, his eyes glowed red, the Mangekyo Sharingan spinning at incredible speed. With the last remnants of his consciousness, he rewound his physical state 2 seconds into the past. The black flames vanished as if they had never been, and his body was restored. At the same moment, Madara Uchiha effortlessly neutralized Amaterasu as well. A blue skeletal armor flared around him, repelling every lick of fire. As the ethereal bones faded, so too did the flames. Seizing the opportunity, Nameless closed in, her left Mangekyo Sharingan whirling in eerie depths, locking eyes with Madara's cold, indifferent gaze. "Tsukuyami!" Madara glanced about. Suddenly the world shifted. The sky and earth were painted a ghastly crimson. The forest vanished, replaced by a battlefield littered with corpses, where countless enormous torii gates sprang up from the ground, hemming him in. Between the torii, the shadowy figures of Senju clan shinobi appeared one after another, faces expressionless as they advanced, swords and blades gleaming coldly. Death hung thick in the air. In such a nightmare, any ordinary soul would be crushed by terror, unable to hold themselves together. However, the one standing in the middle of the field was Uchiha Madara. "So, this is the despair you spoke of?" Madara showed not a trace of panic. On the contrary, a hint of disdain flickered across his face. "Little girl, the real battlefield is 10 times more brutal than this. Your illusion isn't even enough to stir my fighting spirit." Watching the Senju ninja charge toward him, he only shook his head and let out a low, amused chuckle. "In that case, let me teach you a lesson." He opened his eyes slightly, and in that instant, a force deeper and colder than the darkest night, an energy that seemed to surge straight from the depths of hell, swept out from him. This was the power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Under the gaze of those eyes, the illusion shattered like a sheet of ice, breaking apart in an instant. The blood-red world vanished without a trace, leaving only a frail figure hurled back by a surge of overwhelming power. Unnamed crashed against the stone wall. Blood streamed from every orifice, and she nearly lost consciousness. Never cast illusions on someone whose ocular power surpasses your own. Even Tsukuyami will turn against its user. Madara's tone was calm, his expression unchanging from start to finish. He hadn't even taken a single step. Shinyu appeared at N.A.N's side in a flash, a blade of chakra hissing sharply as he pressed it against her pale neck. Don't move. Yet he underestimated N.A.N's resolve. She lifted her head, fixing him with a cold, unwavering stare as fresh blood trickled from her right eye. Amaterasu. The air's temperature soared in an instant. Expecting this, Shinyu immediately used body flicker to move behind N.A.N, letting the black flames lunge at empty air. Still, his fingers brushed the edge of the fire, and black flames quickly spread over his entire hand. This time, he was noticeably calmer. There was little pain on his face, only a faint frown, before he activated his power of reversal and snuffed out the flames. N.A.N tried to turn her head, but a hand clamped down firmly, holding her in place. Shinyu lunged forward, driving his knee forcefully into her back, pinning her to the ground with his full weight. Is this how you treat your savior? He demanded. Savior? Huh. You just don't want me to escape the fate of being an Uchiha weapon. I will never accept being used like a puppet. Hatred burned in N.A.N's eyes. I'll kill both of you, then disappear somewhere no one can ever find me. Shinyu paused for a moment, taken aback. Have you misunderstood something? Tap, tap, tap. A pair of footsteps entered N.A.N's field of vision. Uchiha Hikaru. N.A.N froze. The moment she heard that name, her face went utterly blank, as if a jolt of electricity shot through her mind. Uchiha Hikaru. She looked up, her almond eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. Reflected in them was the towering figure of Uchiha Madara. This man was terrifyingly powerful. She had just experienced firsthand that suffocating sense of standing at the edge of an abyss, and the depthless force in his gaze. She had no way of resisting it. That's right. This is the name your parents gave you. Your true name, Madara replied. My name? She stopped struggling and asked in a low, hoarse voice. Who are you, really? We're just like you. People abandoned by the Uchiha clan. Kamiyu replied helplessly. No, it was we who chose to abandon them. Madara corrected from the side. Wuming looked a bit confused. Ever since she realized these two were of her own blood, she had instinctively assumed they had come to drag her back into war. After all, to the entire Uchiha clan, she had always been